Cookies and a man. A young woman named Julia stood beneath the huge flight information boards at a noisy, crowded airport. Her gaze slid across the scrolling pages until she found the flight number she needed, next to which glowed the ominous message, "Delayed." Her stomach clenched with frustration. She was already imagining her future ocean vacation. A delay of several hours meant that her long-awaited journey would begin with a test of patience. Deciding not to give in to despondency, Julia headed to the nearest duty-free shop. She spent a long time choosing what to buy to brighten her wait, finally settling on a thick novel that promised to transport her to another world, and a small bag of exquisite chocolate-covered cookies. Finding a secluded corner with rows of armchairs, she settled into a deep chair by the window overlooking the runway. She placed her purse to her right on the empty seat next to her and placed the bag of cookies on top. A few minutes later, a distinguished-looking man in a business suit sat down next to her, one seat away from her purse. He was immersed in a recent magazine, looking completely unperturbed. Julia delightedly opened the book, unwrapped the bag of cookies, took one of the crispy treats, and took a bite. Imagine her surprise when, out of the corner of her eye, she saw the man's hand reach for her bag and take a cookie. What impudence, she thought. She decided to ignore it, chalking it up to an unfortunate misunderstanding. But the situation repeated itself. As soon as she reached for the cookie again, her neighbor followed suit. Julia frowned, her mood darkening. She could no longer concentrate on her reading. Her thoughts revolved around the stranger's incredible impudence. She paused deliberately, watching him from behind the book. He calmly finished reading the article as if nothing had happened. Okay, she thought, maybe he's a foreigner and doesn't understand that it's impolite. However, with each passing minute and each cookie he took with astonishing impudence, Julia's indignation grew into rage. She was seething inside. She wanted to sharply reprimand him, to make a remark, but the thought of a public scandal in the crowded waiting room stopped her. There are so many people around, it would be so humiliating, she thought, clutching the book so tightly that the spine cracked. Finally, there was only one cookie left in the bag. Julia was at her wit's end. She looked at him with cold disdain, and then something happened that completely angered her. The man put the magazine down, calmly took the last cookie, and looking at Julia and without saying a word, handed it to her. This gesture, full of what she considered mockery and the utmost insolence, was the last straw. Julia took the cookies and stood up abruptly. She tossed the book into her bag, grabbed her things, and casting a scathing glance at the man, silently but with dignity, walked away from the scene without deigning to say a word. Sometime later, already on the plane, when the initial emotions had subsided, Julia settled herself by the window, remembering her psychologist's words about not getting upset over trifles. She wanted to read to distract herself. She opened her purse and her fingers came across a familiar package. With amazement, she pulled out her packet of cookies, whole and untouched. In that instant, the world turned upside down. Every detail came flooding back to her. Her purse lying on the seat next to her, and the bag of cookies she had placed on top. And next to her was the man's bag, which must have been sitting on the armrest between their chairs. She'd been devouring his cookies all that hour, and he, seeing her confusion and silent agreement, had generously shared with her, without a word of reproach, displaying generosity and patience. And in response, she had only reacted with anger and condemnation. This story is a stark reminder of how often, when faced with a situation that seems unfair, we rush to conclusions and harsh judgment. We view events through the prism of our emotions and prejudices, without attempting to understand the true circumstances. Sometimes it's worth pausing, putting aside anger, and taking a closer look. After all, what appears to be impudence can be simple human kindness.